Hello everybody, today we are going to be working on unit number 4, lesson number 11, using an algorithm to divide fractions. Now raise your hand if you've heard this term algorithm before. Well, if you haven't, you're going to learn more about it today. An algorithm is kind of like a secret formula, okay? And in math, there's formulas you can use to help you solve certain equations. These formulas kind of give you a cheat code so you don't have to draw diagrams, no diagrams, so that you don't need to solve using a systematic principle, okay? So you're going to be learning a formula that will allow you to divide any fraction. So without drawing a diagram, you'll be able to divide something like 3/4 divided by 1/2, okay? You'll be able to divide something like 6/8 divided by 3 wholes, okay? So after you learn this formula, we think you're able to handle it at the moment because you've been working so hard with fractions. We don't want you to forget the principles of dividing. And what are those exactly? Well, we know that when we're dividing, we are thinking of what? Well, we're thinking of groups. Groups of, right? So in this first one, 3/4 divided by 1/8 literally means how many 1/8 fit into 3/4, or how many groups of 1/8 fit into 3/4, right? Okay, so don't forget that. So right here we have a diagram, 3/4 already represented, 3/4, okay? So this last one's pretty obsolete, okay? And we can see the 1/4, the 2/4, and 3/4 all together. But what do we need to figure out? We need to figure out how many 1/8s fit into those 3/4, okay? Well, what do we know, okay? We know that each of these is 1/4, right? How do we know that? Well, because we have 3/4 all together, and each of these is 1/4. But how many groups of 1/8? Well, what do we know? We know that 1/8 is exactly 1/2 of 1/4. So that means 1/8 will fit into both of these, or I should say all three of these, twice. Okay? All right, excellent. So now we have all our 1/8s. Let's go ahead and count those groups. So we have one group of 1/8, two groups of 1/8, three groups of 1/8, four groups of 1/8, five groups of 1/8, six groups of 1/8, six groups of 1/8. So if we were to divide 3/4 by groups of 1/8, we'll notice that six groups of them fit inside, okay? Six whole groups, six groups, okay? So it was nice that we had the equation to solve that problem, but what if we, or sorry, the diagram, but what if we did not want to use a diagram? Well, we can use the algorithm, and this particular algorithm for dividing fractions is called the keep, change, flip algorithm, or KCF, not to be confused by KFC, okay? But pretty much this is how it works, okay? So if you are dividing fractions using this algorithm, you always want to go ahead and keep the first. You want to change the mathematical symbol from a division sign to a multiplication sign. And I already said that we're going to keep the first one, so we'll keep that as 3/4. And then the last thing we're going to do is flip. So we're going to go ahead and take the numerator and flip it to the position of the denominator. So instead of 1/8, we would have 8/1. Excellent. So we've taken 3/4 divided by 1/8 and changed that into 3/4 times 8/1. And what is this going to equal? Well, how can we multiply fractions? Well, you should already know that multiplying fractions means that you go straight across. So that means 3 times 8 equals 24. And 4 times 1 equals 4. Excellent. Now we have a fraction. That is our answer, but we can simplify it, right? Well, 24 over 4 is the same as 24 divided by 4, right? And 24 divided by 4 equals what? Well, let's see. 6, 12, 18, 24, 6. And let's cross-reference. In the last problem, we got 6 groups, which means that the KCF algorithm works because our answer was 6. Okay? Excellent work. So, we know that 3/4 divided by 1/8 gives us 6. And how do we know that? Well, because 3/4, you keep it. Division symbol, you change it into multiplication. And the last fraction, you flip that, and that will give you the answer that you are looking for. Okay, excellent work. We're going to be moving on now to one more question to practice. This time we have 6/8, and we want to divide that into groups of 1/4. So in order to think about that, we need to think about how many 1/4 fit into 6/8. Okay, well, let's go ahead and make our groups of 6/8. So we're going to do one group and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, and how many of those 8s are we focusing in on? Well, we're going to focus in on 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6/8. So we're going to go ahead and shade these last ones in as obsolete because we're not going to use them. And let me just make sure that my thing is working. Okay, so 6/8 all together. Now, how can we divide 6/8 into groups of 1/4? Okay, well, these are all 8ths, right? We have 6 of them. So if each one of these is an 8th, 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, how many groups of 1/4 will fit in there? Well, what do we know? We know that 1/4 is the size of 2/8. So there's our first group of 1/4. There's our second group of 1/4. And our third group of 1/4. Okay, so how many total groups of 1/4 did we get? Let's count them one more time. 1, 2, 3 groups of 1/4. 3 groups, right? 3 groups all together. Okay, so perfect. We've drawn our equation or diagram, but now we want to focus on our algorithm or secret formula. Now, who can remember what we do first? Excellent. So the first thing we do is we keep the original algorithm, or the original fraction, I should say, and then we change the division sign to a multiplication sign, and then we flip. So the final fraction flips to where the denominator replaces the numerator and vice versa. And now we have 6/8 times for wholes. But how do we multiply a fraction? Well, in order to multiply a fraction, we must go straight across, which means that 6 times 4 will equal 24. And then 8 times 1 will equal 8. But can we simplify it? Absolutely. Okay, think of this as a division equation in itself. So 24 divided by 8 will equal 3, or 3 groups. Okay, so let's cross-reference. Yes, the diagram gave us 3 groups, and yes, we got 3 groups using the secret formula or algorithm. So now hopefully you can use this algorithm or secret formula to solve any division fraction situation. So you're going to get a chance to test out your secret formula on the equations below, okay? And always remember to keep, change, and flip. Thank you for tuning in. Take care.